and welcome to the December episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, and today we're going to talk about miracle mindsets as we do every single month on this podcast. We are going into our 5th year now in 2025. So if you're new here, welcome and join us for the ride. And if you've been listening before, then welcome back. We love to have you. And Dave and I were just talking about how we would like to see more engagement in the comments section, and that would be really great. So if you are new or if you've been here before, go ahead and drop a comment down below and just say hi, and we'd love to see who's watching and who's listening. And if you're on the audio podcast as well, I believe you can leave a comment, but if you're watching, leave one on YouTube and we'd love to see it, and maybe we'll shout you out next time or something. No, we didn't rehearse that or talk about that, but who knows, maybe we will. But anyway, my name is Brittany New, and I'm an entrepreneur living in Europe. I'm originally from California, and Dave lives in Florida. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you got into miracle mindsets, if you don't mind.
Sure, Brittany, thank you for being such a great dialogue partner. Our 5th year, wow, amazing. Feels really good in so many different ways. So, yeah, and thank you for having been on this journey. Even though we both say all the time that we've never met in person, it's a point of pride, I think, to celebrate that, because so much good has come out of this partnership, and the longevity of it is really amazing too. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Merry Christmas to you, if that's how you do it. Happy holidays, if you don't do it that way. And to everybody watching, this is December 16th of 2024. Yeah, so just a brief snapshot about me. I live and work in Florida, mostly remotely, and I've pivoted a little bit over the years that we've been doing this from the more sort of corporate type leadership emphasis, working with CEOs, their teams, entrepreneurs. I still do some of that work, but the pivot has been to identify myself as a coach, executive coach to wealthy people. And through a series of circumstances, is just all kinds of wealth, but through specific organizations that have memberships at $20 million and up to $1 billion. And so the aspiration in all of that is to work with people who are well over $1 billion. So that's part of the aspiration, is to do this miracle mindset work with people at that level. And so just a couple of basic terms. A miracle for me is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve. And you can add the tag that the solution is God-centered or higher power-centered or universe-centered, whatever the terminology is that you like. So solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve. And then everything we do on this podcast and everything else that I'm doing is always about the mindset that's related to all of that. And we were talking a little bit in the prep, and I was musing with you, Brittany, about, okay, what's another bottom line thing that we can say either at the beginning or at the end of the podcast? So I'll put it in here now, and we can experiment over time about where it fits best. But bottom line of everything we're doing at the end of the day is how we can each tap in more constantly through each day, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, into that divine power that lies within each of us. I call it the inner genius or the inner GPS. And so that, in a sense, is what this is all about. Miracle Mindset is about removing the obstacles to that and enhancing the practices that allow us to touch, stay connected to the divine mothership. It's a being or a source. And so it's like the best love relationship one can imagine. And everything, all miracles flow out of that. So we'll see how how we fine tune that and tweak that over time as we go along. And obviously, Brittany, you're an ally in that process, and we'll see how it feels to you. So the coaching program that I do the most, there are several different coaching programs, but the main coaching program in the Miracles Mindset work related to my coaching is called Nightmares to Miracles, right? So the reason I bring that up is because usually when a client, somebody is a prospective client and they've been referred to me, that's mostly how I get my clients, is through people I've already worked with, word of mouth referrals. They have a looming crisis, or they're in a crisis, a relationship crisis with a spouse, a lover, kids, coworkers, direct reports, bosses. There's something torturing the client at that level. It's a real nightmare. Or there's a health nightmare, heart condition, diabetes, stroke, just loss of youthful vitality. There's a love crisis of some kind. Uh, Romantic partnerships are failing them, or they can't find what they want, or there's betrayal, or uh, divorce, or any number of different things going on. Again, with children, problems with children, even adult children, people in their 60s, 70s who are having um, a tough time. And again, I'm giving very general um, ideas about what I work with. I try to be very strictly confidential about my clients. I don't mention names and I don't get into specifics, just in case my clients are listening. I don't cross that line, just so you know. But it's helpful, I think, to the audience to understand some of the texture of what's going on here. And then the final, so it's health, wealth, love, and then enlightenment. The final area in which we're doing nightmares to miracles is where people have lost a sense of purpose and meaning, why they're doing what they're doing, or why they're even alive, why they're here for the rest of their lives. So those are some thoughts there, all by way of intro. Um, Really, like, just to let it breathe a little bit, anything you want to say or ask, and then we'll go into a few more things before we get to today's actual study.
Yeah, sure. You were mentioning some of the nature of the types of nightmares that you deal with, and one of my favorite illustrations you give often is legal nightmares too. You didn't say that one today, but that for me would be just every day you wake up and you're like, "Oh, I wish this was gone." So, yeah, that's a big one for these kind of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the scarier ones. And again, I'm not taking sides, and I don't mean to make this controversial, but I think of P. Diddy with his billions of dollars, but he's been grabbed and detained. And for the third time, he's requested bail and been rejected for the third time. And they're saying for Thanksgiving, the treat he could look forward to was going to be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? So imagine you have $1 billion treasure chest, the best lawyers, but your day-to-day existence is that you are in a cage, and you could be there for the rest of your life, depending on what happens, right? So again, most of my situations are not as extreme as that, and I'm not a lawyer, but I always say that my expertise is in helping a client convert a nightmare to a miracle, whatever the nightmare is. So thank you for highlighting that. That's got to be one of the scariest ones.
Yeah, your
Is
freedom ripped away in an instant,
yes,
or all
yes,
your money, or all your assets, or your entire reputation. That's most
yes,
likely too, because just word getting out about a scandal ruins your reputation with no confirmation of it being true either.
exactly. Good point. That's another thing that we do a lot too is, okay, false accusations have been made. It was in the press. It was on CNN. It was on wherever it was. And you can't dial that back yourself because other people are now talking and they think about you a certain way. It just ruins your whole life. And again, on the P Diddy thing, I'm not for or against in this podcast. I'm not trying to make a statement for or against him. I'm just saying, as an illustration, that it's kind of one of the things that people are most frightened of, to your point. And how do we allow this process to be something that helps people to overcome the nightmare that they're in? Especially if it involves the legal system. And also, there's a movie that comes to mind. I don't know if you've seen this movie, but I think it's called The Fugitive. And there was a TV series about the fugitive. So this prominent surgeon is accused of having murdered his wife. It's an old black and white movie series from the 60s, I think. And then they made it into a movie with, I think Harrison Ford was the doctor, and Tommy Lee Jones is the guy pursuing him. And the prosecutor, the marshals, they're relentless. They are hunting this person down, and it's everything he can do to prove his innocence. It's great. it's a great illustration of some of what we're talking about. In this case, with somebody who's clearly hasn't, who's clearly innocent. Uh, okay, there's all of that now in the mix. So thank you for your thoughts and comments there. That's excellent. I appreciate that. Just a few more what we call the preliminaries. And so our theme for this year, we have annual themes. So our theme for 2025 is light in ACIM. We usually start the theme for the new year in November of the preceding year. So that we started in November on light. This is December. We're continuing with light, and then we'll do it all through 2025 until November, where we start the new theme. And the theme that we just come off of for 2024 was vision. Vision. And it seemed to me to be a good idea to uh, follow up vision with light. That's how we end up seeing well. But this is inner light. It's not, it has almost nothing to do, other than by way of metaphor, it has nothing to do with external physical light that we see with our physical eyes. This is inner spiritual light. So we'll be doing that. And then I have a lesson that I've been living with year by year since 2023. So I did it all of 2023. I'm doing it all of 2024, and I'm going to do it 25. I should just probably say this is my, cornerstone lesson that I carry with me through everything. It's lesson 47. God is the strength in which you trust, and uh, this helps me to stay plugged into the divine source about everything. I can be in a bad mood. I can be wanting to just sleep and not do anything productive, Netflix and chill, as they say, whatever. I mean, whatever it is. But as long as I'm connected to the divine, and the divine is the source of my strength, I always power up through that source of strength, right? That's why I like this lesson, God is the strength in which I trust. And the lesson itself in ACIM gives a whole list of bad things that are the result of not staying plugged in: anxiety, depression, just a bunch of things that we're all familiar with on some level, even if we're not clinically diagnosed. So anyway, this is what I'm getting at when I say for us to have something that keeps us connected regularly to the divine. So just another tidbit of information about myself. So where we're going now is this is one of my favorite parts of what we do every time on every call. So it's the miracles we've enjoyed together in our work relationship, right? So I'll go through this, and then it gives you a chance to say some more about what you do and to give a shout out to our audience, give them more specifics about where they can find you. So the way we started 4+ years ago, although it seems like an eternity, in a good way, it seems a lot longer than that. It seems like I've known you all my life or something. But the way we started was I stumbled on you online as somebody who could beautify things, products and just the basics. And at the time, I was sending self-made uh, Word documents to clients. Just this is the outline and so on. And I was like, maybe Brittany can make these look more professional. So I checked in with you. You could, and you did. I mean, stuff that came back was like amazing. Like, wow, okay. So I was really, really enamored of your work and grateful for it. We did that for a while, and then the next step was, oh, could you help me with video modules for my online course? I've recorded some things in audio, but online courses, they all look good in certain ways. Could you do anything with that? And you had some really amazing, ambitious ideas, which we didn't execute on. We haven't executed on yet. We may still do them yet, but you just beautified everything there too. And then it made it, in some ways, easier for me to repurpose all of that stuff from the online course to my book. And I always hasten to add that it wasn't just an easy pivot. Sometimes you're sold the idea that you can do your book really easily. I mean, it was easier because of the work you and I had done together, but still about a year of editing and refining and thinking through things through. And then the final move here is that I thought to myself, I want to do a monthly show. I can just experiment with communicating with a broader audience about all of this. And I was like, but I definitely don't want to do it alone. So who's somebody that I could have as a companion, a partner, an ally who could help me with it? And again, your name had flashing lights in my psyche, and I was like, oh well, I don't know. This is a bit of a stretch, Dave. I don't know if she'd be into it, but let me check. So I checked with you, and you're like, yeah, I'm game. Let's do it. So I've actually known you longer than the 4+ years we've been doing the podcast, if I'm correct about it. At least 2 or 3 years before. So that's why I think I've known you so long. So anyway, so there you have it. I mean, it's like we've been doing this, and the thing about you that I always like to add is that um, you're easy to talk to about this. You kind of represent like an avatar of our audience members, right? Somebody who's successful, ambitious, productive, does great work, but may not be fully all in with the Course in Miracles as your main path. But you ask questions that somebody who was open might ask. You think things through about like somebody who has their own spiritual religious background, but who might be interested, is not turned off or hostile. So that worked out as an extra bonus, having you as a dialogue partner about the actual content, not just interviewing me, but having it be a dialogue between us. And then the practical thing that I think the whole audience, the whole world needs to hear is that you help to do this video. This create the video part of it gives us raw video. You edit it with a beautiful intro, a beautiful outro. You've been curating. This is our 5th year now, so you've been curating each of the years with a special look. You do all of that. You're on top of it, even when I'm not thinking about it. You're like, yeah, okay, this is the look I think we'll use for this year. Uh, you edit the video itself if it needs editing. You have an audio version, just an audio version for people who just want to listen if they're on a long drive or wherever. And we've had people, a handful of people say in no uncertain terms that they binge watch the podcast as audio. I think it is. They're able to listen to it. It's like binge watch. Okay, I like it. I like it. We'll hang our hats on that. And then you also translate all of this into a blog, a written. That'd probably be the fastest one to look at because you can skim it, speed read it, but you're also not just doing it under an automated system. You do tweak that and edit it, right? So it's just an amazing amount of value. And then you post all of this to all the different places where it can be hosted. So, okay, so with all of that said, over to you, Brittany, for anything you want to add. Again, we don't practice this ahead of time. It's just something that we've fallen into. I really like it. It might seem repetitive to our regulars. If it is, you can skip over it to the actual content of today. But I like the fact that we do this and celebrate it each time. So over to you, Brittany.
Yeah, thank you for that amazing shout out. I really enjoy doing this every month. And yeah, I think it's so special that we get together every single month without fail. We've never missed one. I think we've doubled up once or twice because of my traveling schedule or something like that. But we've been so consistent. And that's a miracle in and of itself of just combined purpose, and that's really beautiful. And it's been a very educational experience learning from you. That's been a real privilege. Your time is so valuable, so having this opportunity is amazing for me. I get to learn about this, and so often you're pulling me back into the point, which is like, for example, we're not solving legal problems with legal solutions or medical problems with medical solutions. We're solving them with miracle mindset solutions. So that's been a constant cycle of reminder, and that's why also you guys should listen and watch this regularly because it's so easy to forget. And in terms of my work, I do help other different types of coaches and other types of entrepreneurs develop thought leadership. That's a new phrase that I'm going to start integrating into my business, is cultivating thought leaders in different spaces. And so I can say honestly that Dave is the #1 thought leader for miracle mindsets. I'm sure if you Google miracle mindset, he's the go-to guy on the subject in terms of executive coaching for miracle mindsets. And that's how a lot of people discover this show, by the way. That's what people had told us. So being a thought leader in whatever niche it is that you work in, for those of you listening, is really valuable for your brand. And I can help you develop that on whichever platform you choose. There's a different strategy for Instagram, for YouTube, and for, I would say LinkedIn is one of the most underrated platforms for thought leadership in terms of low barrier to entry. I mean, you don't have to film a long form piece of content the way that we do on LinkedIn. You just kind of jot your thoughts out, and people are very receptive, and there's a lot less trolls than on other platforms. Sometimes I don't know if we've seen any on this channel, but YouTube is crawling with trolls. X is crawling with trolls. So if you want to be a thought leader in 2025, I would say LinkedIn is your place to go, and I can help you with that. Anyone who's curious, it's a very professional, B2B, inclusive environment. But anyway, enough about that, and I'm excited to hear some about today's lesson on light. Let's get into that.
That was excellent, Brittany. Thank you for just sharing with all of us more about who you are. Before we go, I know we're pivoting. Do you want to say where people can reach you, or did I miss that?
Yes, I forgot. Yeah, I do always include a link to my website in the description of the video, but it's brittanynew.com. It's just my name. And I also have my own YouTube channel, Brittany New, where you can learn more about media tutorials. And I'm going to post a video soon about thought leadership. So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And again, your information is in our newsletter, our once a month newsletter. It's there if folks want to take a look. And we've even experimented with you on your own, unsolicited by me, sharing with us a very powerful narrative on 1 month about your own nightmare to miracle kind of experience traveling. So that was really cool. And all these things get posted in the newsletter as they come up. So thank you so much for that. Awesome. Good to hear. And I can only hope and wish that people experience the miraculous nature of your work for them as I've experienced it for me. Just excellent. All right. Oh, and just one other thing too. In terms of trolling, you brought that up. I've been mildly trolled here and there. It always makes me laugh, really. I mean, so again, not to wallow in the negative, but just to give a sense of the flavor of it. So one person on Facebook, I think it was, there was a posting of some of my material on Facebook. I think it was about my book, the Nightmares to Miracles book. And the person said very, almost like insulting things like, "Oh, are you still peddling your book?" Now, peddling was offensive to me. I'm like, peddling? Like, I was just reacting to this stuff, not really angrily, but peddling. Do you know what that word means? Peddling? In my mind, my thought bubbles were like, I'm peddling my book? Okay. Really a zinger there. And they're like, you must need extra cash to fix that bald head of yours. That's what they added, that I was peddling this for. I was like, I screenshot it and I have all of these and I keep them, they make me laugh more than anything, right? That people can take the time. Now, to your point, there are places where people will troll you and troll you and troll you. I mean, it's hardcore, like hard. There's one other person who was sort of softer. They were like, I think that was on Twitter. And they were like, yeah, dude, like, why are you supporting billionaires? Why is your vibe like you're okay with billionaires? And I mean, they just, anybody with $35 million and up, it's criminal, if they have that. And I was like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I have the privilege of being able to talk to some of these people and they're suffering. There's a certain level, and they're like, yeah, the world's smallest violin. I don't care about their suffering. But I say, okay, they influence a lot of people, including employees. And if they can be softer in their energy and I have a role in that, why not? And then the person's like, oh, okay, I get that. So it wasn't like it was a soft, anyway. So thanks for bringing that up about the trolling. It's like, and some of it you're just going to leave alone. You're just like, okay, whatever. I have no response, not going to engage, that kind of thing. But these others were kind of interesting. All right, so we're going to move. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say. I don't mean to monopolize here, but anything else? Yeah. All right. So, but you teed that up for me again, unplanned, but I love the opportunity to share that. So lesson 61. This is the lesson for today. Lesson 61. If you're interested in following, I think in the show notes it says where you can go. But ACIM, M as in Mary, A Course in Miracles, acim.org, has a free electronic version of the course online. So you can look at the lesson yourself and go through it more thoroughly. I just kind of spot check a few things here and there um, to tee things up. So I'll read the first paragraph and then discuss that a little bit before we move on to other aspects of the lesson. So it says here, who is the light of the world except God's son or child, to make it more inclusive? Who is the light of the world except God's child? This then is merely a statement of the truth about yourself. It is the opposite of a statement of pride, of arrogance, or of self-deception. It does not describe the self-concept you have made. It does not it does not refer to any of the characteristics with which you have endowed your idols. It refers to you as you were created by God. It simply states the truth. So the way that I usually unpack this after many years of struggling with these types of things, I'm like, what? Okay, what did I just read? It's like it's a bit complicated and it seems to go around in circles, but the way that I stay grounded about the meaning of this is by making reference to the story of the prodigal child or the prodigal son is the original way, right? So everybody knows the story. We reference that a lot on our show. But in a nutshell, the younger son, there are two brothers, the younger brother, give me my money, he says to the father. He wants to break away, go do his own thing. Father is like, no, stay here. You have everything. Why would you want to go? It's not good for you. Anyway, he gives him the money. He leaves. The younger child wastes all the money, squanders it in loose living. He's in a bad, bad way, squalid conditions, barely enough to eat. There's a famine in the land. And it says at some point he comes to his senses and he says, wait, I got a father who's probably got still a thriving uh, household. Let me go there. And this is where it relates to what we just read, right? He says in his mind, I basically don't have a right to anything. So I'll go back and just ask for a menial job to do and a place, some food to eat and a place to stay, right? So when he gets there, the father spies him from far off and runs to meet him with elation and throws his arms around his son's neck, weeping with joy, and gets the household all busy to like have a party for him and bring rings and clothes that indicate the status of the son in the household. And you can tell that the son, based on how he was coming there, he's a little bit off kilter because in his mind, he's already punishing himself for having left and squandered his inheritance and that he's not entitled to anything. And so he doesn't quite square with why his father is just generously bringing him back and elevating him to his original status. Not to mention the older brother who didn't do any of this stuff. He's really upset with this. He's like, what are you doing? This guy screwed up. He doesn't belong here. Anyway, the real reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a part of all of us that does this. We punish ourselves before God can get to us. And we think that we're being humble in demoting ourselves into a level befitting whatever our crime or misdemeanor has been, whatever our failing has been. And this section here, which guides the whole rest of the lesson, is saying, absolutely not. There's nothing we can ever do to change the unconditional love that we were created in and that we are always entitled to no matter what has happened or what we've done. Now, that's a lot, I think, and that the arrogance is demoting ourselves. That's the thing that's really arrogant, not believing that we are entitled to all of this. That's not the arrogance. So let me pause here, see if you have any reactions, and then we'll move into our other things that we do.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Just letting the true judge be the true judge and not putting ourselves in that position. And there are different codes with which you can interpret how that judge would judge and what the atonement, as a word that you like to use, would be carried out, but not taking that all into your own hands. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I am the light of the world is the theme. And then arrogance is to say, how can I be the light of the world when I'm not this, I haven't done this, I've screwed up here, I have a track record that's all written in red. It's bad. I mean, it's like, and this is saying that none of that matters compared to what we were originally born into and what we're entitled to, almost legally, right? And that the arrogance is in denying that, like you said, not letting the true judge say what we're entitled to and what we're not entitled to, but then saying, I'll step in, I can be the judge. I've got it all figured out. I can be the correct judge. I love how you said that. Very, very powerful. So the lesson goes on about that. And this is the reason I always bring in the prodigal son story to flesh it out, because then it makes it, to me, it makes it, maybe other people get it easier just using the original. But for me, this helps me to get grounded in what we're talking about. And Gary Renard, in the book Disappearance of the Universe, which is a very sort of powerful commentary on what Jesus is trying to accomplish in A Course in Miracles, Gary Renard in that book says that Jesus says that it's one of the most profound things he taught when he came the first time is in the story of the prodigal son, but it wasn't understood properly. And so the Course in Miracles is an attempt to really reestablish this idea of God's unconditional love for us, and that everything else that's not based in our original perfection is like having a bad dream or a nightmare that we just want to wake up from and let the Spirit wake us up from. Now, there could be a lot of arguments, right? So like, what about a Ted Bundy, who is a serial murderer and a serial rapist and just a bad dude, executed a while back in Florida, I think. So what does this say about somebody like that? We're not saying that that person would be set loose into society, right? There have to be guardrails against clear, overt criminality. But we're saying, and even though somebody like that has been adjudged by our system as deserving of the death penalty and has been executed, again, and with all the proper decorum and respect and concern for the victims of these horrible things that he did, we're saying that for the ultimate judge, that's not who this person was. That the things that are part of the narrative, earthly narrative, are part of his nightmare and the nightmare of other people. Really bad nightmare, terrible nightmare. But at a more absolute level, there's a perfection to him and to everybody else. I'm not saying that I'm out there flying banners for this and protesting and whatnot, but I'm just saying that it is the principle that this lesson is teaching us to kind of try to understand, where my favorite, I guess maybe I should be careful in saying this, but my favorite movies are revenge movies. Those are the movies I love more than any other movies, like The Equalizer, uh, Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise. They're like, you want to take me on? Uh, I would advise you not to do that. And the guy's like, are you crazy? There's 6 of us and 1 of you. We'll tear you apart. He says, don't say I didn't warn you. And then proceeds to like beat the living crap out of them. And they're all like, anyway, these are my favorite movies. I like the quick revenge, the quick settling of differences. And it's a little bit like maybe ancient Greek theater's catharsis, in that I can release, like they used to do with the gladiators, I can release what I'm harboring a little bit by watching it vicariously through the movie. In truth, I'm not really like that. But anyway, so glad I got all of that out. Anything you want to say before we move to wrapping up this lesson? Um,
Yeah, I have another example that comes to mind and is a little bit relevant depending on, I don't know, I look at influencer culture a little bit. So a story that's been making the rounds recently. I don't want to even get to the specifics of the entire story, but the new trend of OnlyFans modeling. So I was having a conversation with someone about this recent story that I don't even want to get into specifics of, and the person I was talking to said, "Oh, how would anyone ever marry a woman like that?" And I was thinking, as much as I don't agree with what they're doing, I do think it's a bit silly to reduce a whole population of women who, for better or for worse or for whatever reason, have normalized this decision. I mean, who knows if they'd make good partners? Just
right.
that's kind of on the not so not so harmful as being a serial killer, of course. Usually, in my opinion, it might only harm yourself, if anyone. Um, but yeah, these are entire, fully three-dimensional human beings, and they could be the most generous people you've ever met. They could be the most funny. They could be really good chefs also, in addition. Who knows why somebody might want to marry that person. And of course, they do get married, some of these girls. So, yeah, I was just correcting that person. And like, we don't want to reduce people down to their decisions that we don't agree with or whatever someone's worst decision might have been. They might look back on things later on in life as well. Who knows?
Yeah, you see stories like that where here we're not censored by anybody, but on TikTok they always say corn actresses. I'm like, okay, corn, okay, but I guess it's porn actresses, but they try to rehabilitate their characters. They try to get things scrubbed. They become activists in sex worker culture. There's all kinds of things, but yeah, the last couple of weeks, again, not to mansplain anything, but just to join what you're talking about. There was this one woman who apparently had 100 sexual intercourse partners. Oh, is that the one? Okay. Well, uh, right. If you decide it should be edited, fine. If not, I don't see the harm. Yeah, I don't see the harm in it. But 100 partners, and people are analyzing her like she seems kind of not fully there. She seems vacuous and vacant. I've seen some of her things. She seems quite in command of her experience, and what she's had. And then now she's saying she wants to do 1,000 men in 24 hours. That's the next thing she's going to aim for. And I'm like, okay, OnlyFans is interesting. I think that I say this to my female friends, my hetero female, my cisgendered female friends all the time. Truth be told, men want one thing from women, and if they get it, they're running after that most of the time, unless they've got things influencing them. And I think OnlyFans is just the latest way to cater to our male fantasy of unhindered access to women in a sexual way, even though it's a fantasy and it's all this other stuff. And so, there's always some pearl clutching about this. And I don't mean to normalize it or, in any way take too much of a position other than to say, okay, I mean, it's, freedom is, and I've said this on other platforms too, where I'm a member, I'm like, it's all part of the democratic process, and if you don't break a law and aren't in danger of going to prison for it, even sometimes the laws are wrong, about this stuff, but then, it's okay in a free and democratic society. It may not be morally upstanding or what people want to see and so on. But anyway, now I'm drifting apart from why you brought it up. But I love that you brought it up, and I love that we get to talk about the erotic and libido and desire. And OnlyFans is an amazingly interesting development in that process in the world. I think So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the bravery in sharing that. Um, all right, so there's a couple more things. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. Don't mean to just, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, so there's exercises, right? And most of the things we look at, not all the time, but most of the time, there are exercises. So I'll just read what it says about the exercises for this lesson. It says, as many practice periods as possible should be undertaken today, although each one need not exceed a minute or two. They should begin by telling yourself, I am the light of the world. That is my only function. That is why I'm here, right, is to be the light of the world. And then it goes into a little bit more detail. And it says, really, we should start the day with this exercise and end the day with this exercise. So we've got two more parts to what we want to do today before we wrap up. We've got the application and then a call to action, right? So in the application, this is the way I've been thinking about this. So in certain of my client circles, I will go there after sort of living in obscurity where I normally live. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody really cares. Okay, fine. Then I go to visit my clients where they are, and I'm treated like a visiting dignitary from another country. It's like the red carpet. This is Dr. Dave, Dr. And people are like, oh, you're Dr. Dave. Oh my goodness. Oh, like it's it's like this um, a note of recognition about something. All right, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, whenever you come to town, miracles just start flying and popping off. It's just amazing things happen." And then I always usually gently, I embrace what they're saying. I like it, but I always try to say, there's this movie called Being There, uh, which was by the guy who did the Pink Panther. I'm always blanking on his name, but we can find it if people really want to know. And Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers was the guy, and he's a humble gardener for a very wealthy family. And when the patriarch, everybody else is gone except the patriarch of the family, and I think when he dies, the press flocks onto this gardener for the wealthy man, and they asking him questions, and they say, "What's your name?" And he says, Chauncey. And they say, "What do you do?" And he says, "Gardener." He just gives these monosyllabic answers. So they start calling him Chauncey Gardener, like that's his name. And everything he says is imbued with amazing meaning and wisdom. So they might ask him, I'm just making this up, but the movie shows it. They might ask him, like, "So what's the secret to your success, Chauncey Gardner, as one of the most important people in this wealthy man's life?" And he said, "Plant the seeds." He's just doing this gardener, shtick, like what he knows from being a gardener, but very humble. And then it goes around the world that one of the wisest people in the world says the secret to success is plant the seeds, and then all the gardening metaphors. So I'll tell a little bit about. What I'm really trying to say is that this power is in everybody. And when I show up, it's nice to be affirmed and acknowledged. It's better than living in complete no obscurity when I'm back home. But at the same time, I don't want to get it twisted that it's me, it's them, there's something activated in them. Um, so I am the light of the world, but I'm just a messenger letting the light through, right? And then other people will say, "Oh, no, you should really just own that. Why are you even qualifying it?" And it's almost like the prodigal son saying, "Oh, I don't deserve that." And it's not really about that. It's a teaching principle, which is that it's in everybody, in me and in everybody. So there's that. And then other people have the challenge of, like, "Yeah, I do too many bad things, or I fail too much to really be able to own that I am the light of the world." I can't quite reconcile myself with that. Maybe other people are, but I'm not. So these are all the different shadings of meaning that can come into this discussion. And the only reason I'm bringing all of this up is to say, we're aware of it in our circles, that these concerns come up. It's not just, it's easier said than done, is what I'm saying. There's nuances. There's some other things that have to be considered. So I just wanted to put that out there. My job with my clients who are still actively running big organizations um, is to support them to develop what I refer to as their lighthouse brand, where at the end of the day, this phrase, "I am the light of the world," is what they mediate through their CEO role. Had one client who was part of a senior leadership team. He'll recognize this, and it's okay, I think, with him, even though I'm not explicitly identifying who he is, who's running a $5 billion company as one of three of the senior leadership team. That's a big position of influence. And for that person to say, "I am living in and want to live more deeply in my lighthouse brand as the light of the world," that's really cool as a form of application. All right, so that's it. You usually take us to the call to action, if you don't mind doing that again today. But anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'll just tie it all in together, my response and then my
Thank you.
application call to action. So, if you hadn't mentioned Lighthouse Brand, I was definitely going to mention it because that's
Thank you.
definitely relevant. We're probably going to be mentioning Lighthouse Brand every episode of the Light series, so it's going to keep
Yes.
coming up. But yeah, just really remembering that that is one of your main purposes on the world on the earth is to be a light in the world. And so what comes to mind with today's lesson is how one of my college friends, her mother's who is a really unique mom. She was like really into essential oils, and she was just like one of, you already have
Yeah.
like a picture of who this mom was. And my friend said that she would always tell her daughter, her three daughters, "You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world."
Mm.
From the Bible, I guess it's in there as well. So when I heard that from my friend, and then how amazing of a relationship they have, I always thought when I have children, I want to tell them that every single day, put it on the walls and all of that. So
Yes.
as leaders, as some of you leaders watching this and listening to this, you can go around saying that to people anywhere, anytime, people in your organizations, and just make that your mantra for yourself and for others. And then the contrary comes to mind, where I had an experience the other day where I was embarrassed by a friend of mine. She didn't do it on purpose, but
Mm.
I just immediately called her stupid in front of a big group of people. It was a party for me, and she embarrassed me, and I said, "You're stupid." And I felt so bad. It was an otherwise perfect day, but
Yes.
I apologized to her when everyone left, and then I had to also remind myself to make myself feel a little better. The reason I said that to her so quickly is because I tell myself that all the time. So,
Yeah.
what you tell yourself is often what comes out of you. So, it's really important to
Mm.
have good self talk. And that was a
Okay.
moment for me to think in that moment, my self talk habits have been really bad because that shouldn't have come out of my mouth so easily.
Yeah.
She was a really good friend, so I felt so comfortable, like I was talking to myself, but it was not
Right.
acceptable. And so, yeah, it was a learning moment for my self talk, actually. So the mantra of "I am the light of the world," giving that out in your organizations, in your family, in your marriage, I think that could do wonders according to just this whole philosophy of being that light and that lighthouse brand. Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful and very vulnerable anecdote there. Appreciate you sharing that with us. It's yeah, I say it in my head a lot to be about people. Oh, that, you're so stupid. That's so stupid. I mean, I do that, but I can see how it could just come out of the abundance of the heart. The mouth speaks is a scripture that speaks to that. But thank you for being vulnerable about it. And again, it ultimately doesn't do any harm, but it can remind us that we've still got a tangle of things. Again, not to make this any longer than it needs to be, and we are moving towards closure. But It's a Wonderful Life, right? The George Bailey character, he's a source of light in his town for a very long time for a lot of people until his life gets all jacked up through Potter, his nemesis, stealing the money that makes him think that he's actually now going to go to jail, and he's ruined. And so he decides to commit suicide. But on the night before, his kids are playing the piano, they're decorating the Christmas tree, and he just has a bad tantrum. He kicks things over. He says, "Why did we have to have all these kids?" to his wife. Like, I mean, he really, this thing that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, that we have inside of us, it just all blurts out, before he runs to the local bridge to jump off and commit suicide. That's about half of the movie. The other half is all the redemption that comes after that, in terms of A Beautiful Life. But yeah, thank you. That's really very gracious of you to share that wonderful example.
Thank you. And
You are
thanks
welcome.
everyone for watching and listening. As we said in the beginning, I'll remind you again, if you can leave a comment that you're just listening from wherever you are or what you found interesting. We would just love to see increased engagement on these videos, and that would really help them get seen by more people. So if you've made it to the end of this extra long episode, you're probably one of our diehards. So we would really appreciate that.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Thank you for emphasizing that. Thank you, Brittany, for the end of our fourth year doing this and our beginning of our fifth year. We've already begun. Thank you to our audience members. And I'll just say that in addition to being a light in your work and everything else that Brittany you mentioned, I'm practicing with this newfound simplicity around uh, being connected to the ultimate source of light for all of us, which is the divine. However you perceive or understand the divine, that's where the miracle mindset really gets its power from, for us to have miracles in our lives. So in terms of the end of the calendar year, we are grateful to the Most High for having brought us this far. And I'll let you take us out, Brittany. See you in the actual new year of the calendar year. And thank you.
See you in the new year. I didn't even clock that it was the last one because we've already started.
That's
We're
right.
already in next year.
Same here. Same
It's
here.
been a great year, and here's to many more.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And to our audience too. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye.